Welcome back to the deep dive. Okay, you've done it. You navigated the market. You handled all those showings, got a solid contract in hand. Great news.
Feels good, right?
It does. But if your buyer needs a mortgage, and let's be honest, most do these days, there's still one big hurdle left. Maybe the biggest.
Yep. The home appraisal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The professional third-party opinion of value. And if it comes in low, well, things can get complicated fast.
Oh, absolutely. A low appraisal doesn't just slow things down. It can actually, derail the whole deal. The bank won't lend more than what the appraiser says it's worth.
Creates an instant gap.
Right. A funding gap the buyer has to fill, or the deal dies.
So our mission today is specifically for you, the seller. We're going beyond the usual tidy-up advice. We're going to unpack how value is actually determined, comps, income, the works, and then give you some really specific proactive things you can do.
Things to manage the process, basically, to help make sure your home's value, both perceived and on paper, hits that contract price.
We want to take that stressful waiting period and turn it into, well, more of a predictable plan. Less chaos, more control.
Because when you understand what appraisers and lenders are looking for, and importantly, how presentation affects perception, you can often head off problems before they even start.
Let's get into it.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start with the basics, the math behind it all. Something we keep hearing is that to really succeed in real estate, you have to know value to recognize opportunity.
That's fundamental.
And a property's value isn't just, what the tax assessment says. It's more dynamic than that.
Absolutely. The standard approach everyone thinks of is comparable sales or comps, and that's huge, definitely. But the appraiser has a bigger toolkit.
Right. Like when sellers or investors are pricing a place, especially one that needs work, they're thinking about ARV.
After repair value, yeah, that's critical. It's what the property should be worth once all the fixing up is done.
Kind of sets the ceiling, doesn't it? If your total cost buying it plus fixing it gets too close to what similar already fixed up homes are selling for.
The comp.
Yeah, the comps. Then the whole investment just doesn't pencil out.
And the appraiser is doing basically the same calculation, just in reverse, to justify the current sales price. They're looking hard at recent sales of similar homes.
Homes in comparable condition, maybe even better condition.
Exactly. So if your contract price is way above what those recent comps sold for, the appraiser needs a reason. They need justification.
And that justification often needs to come from you, the seller. You need to provide the why.
Show them why yours is worth more.
But it's not always just about comps, right? Especially for investment properties, like rentals or multi-units. There's the income approach.
Right, the income approach to value. This is where you look at the property through an investor's lens. Even if it's a single-family home being sold, it's about earning potential.
And that revolves around NOI.
Net operating income.
Yeah.
It's a key metric.
Okay, so how do you actually calculate that? How do you get to the NOI?
Well, you start with the gross income. That's the total rent the property could bring in if fully occupied at market rates.
Potential income.
Potential, exactly. Then you subtract all the operating expenses. And you need to be thorough here.
Not just taxes and insurance.
Oh, no. It includes allowances for things like vacancies, times it might sit empty, plus maintenance reserves, maybe capital expenditures for bigger future repairs, utilities if the landlord pays them, fire insurance.
Even a management fee if someone's hired to run it.
Yep, even an allowance for management. What's left after all that? That's your net operating income, your NOI.
Okay, got the NOI.
Yep.
Then I saw this mention of like a rule of thumb, multiplying it by 10. That seems a bit arbitrary.
Yeah, the multiply by 10 thing. It's a simplification, really. It represents using a 10% capitalization rate, or cap rate.
Okay, cap rate. What's that telling us?
It's basically the annual rate of return an investor would expect if they bought the property outright, all cash. So if a property makes $10,000 in NOI and it sells for $100,000, that's a 10% cap rate.
So you take the NOI and divide it by the cap rate investors expect in that market for that type of property.
Exactly. If the market cap rate is, say, 8%, you divide the NOI by 0.08. That gives you the value based on its income potential.
I see. So if you, as the seller, can give the appraiser a solid, believable new income schedule, maybe showing rents are going up in the area, or that your place justifies higher rents because of upgrades,
then you're giving them a mathematical reason for a higher value, even if the recent comps are maybe a little lower.
it makes the appraisal look forward, not just backward at past sales.
Precisely. It helps you argue, yeah, the house down the street sold for X, but mine generates Y in income, which supports a price of Z. Super useful for properties you've recently improved or repositioned.
And this focus on calculated value ties into why real estate is seen as such a powerful asset, right? Leverage and equity come into play.
Definitely. They call real estate the most able investment. Attainable, appreciable, leverageable, and improvable. That leverage part is key.
And for the lender, the one paying for the appraisal, their main concern is risk.
Measured by the buyer's equity, how much skin they have in the game. The lender wants to be sure they're lending against solid value.
And here's a really critical point for sellers.
Yeah.
The lender ideally should be lending against the value of the property.
Not just the buyer's cost to acquire it.
Why is that difference so important?
Because that difference is where wealth building happens in real estate. Think about it. Say an investor buys a place for $70, puts $20 in repairs into it. Total cost, $90.
Okay.
But after repairs, it appraises for $120,000. That's $30,000 in new equity, created value.
Right.
Now, if the bank only lends based on the $90,000 cost, maybe 75% of that, which is $67,500, the investor can't tap into that new equity they just created.
I see. But if the bank lends based on the new $120,000 value, say 75% of that.
That's $90,000, the full amount they have into it. They can refinance, pull their original cash back out, and use it for the next deal while still owning the property.
Huge difference.
Massive. It's the difference between capital being stuck and capital being velocity. So the seller needs to help the appraiser see and document that new, higher value to justify the price and help the buyer get the loan they need.
Okay, that covers the numbers side, the metrics. But appraisals aren't just spreadsheets. There's a subjective element, right?
Nope, absolutely. Big time.
So how do we manage that? How do we make sure the appraiser's feeling about the house pushes their final number towards the high end of the comparable sales?
Right. This is where we pivot from finance to marketing, really. Psychology. Value is subjective until it's down on paper. So you, the seller, have to treat your home like a product.
Brand it.
You have to brand it. Every little choice, paint colors, furniture, even what's on the counters, it all needs to target your most likely buyer. You're trying to shape the story the appraiser tells themselves as they walk through.
We have some pretty good data on what different generations respond to, like Gen X buyers.
Right. Our sources say Gen X often likes stainless steel appliances, signals quality. But a formal dining room? Maybe not so much. They often see it as wasted space.
Less formal living, more open concept.
Exactly. Keep those kitchen counters clear, minimal, looks bigger, more functional.
And for Gen Y, the millennials.
Similar trend away from formal dining, but maybe a built-in wine fridge or a dedicated coffee station, that can be a big plus. They value experiences, social spaces.
So the takeaway for the seller is, don't waste money upgrading features your target buyer doesn't care about, or worse, sees as a negative.
Focus on that modern, functional kitchen. Maximize the feeling of space. That's where you get the return.
Beyond the specific features, there's this idea of cohesion and flow, making the whole house feel harmonious.
Yes. That's crucial for the appraiser's walkthrough. If things feel disconnected or jarring, it subtly lowers the perceived value, even if they can't quite put their finger on why.
It's about balance.
It is. And sometimes counterintuitively, if a place is too perfect, too symmetrical, like a brand new renovation.
It can feel a bit sterile.
Exactly. Sterile, maybe even a little stiff. In those cases, you actually want to introduce some strategic asymmetry.
So instead of matching pairs of everything, maybe use some organic shapes, natural textures, things that aren't perfectly lined up.
Precisely. A little bit of natural irregularity can make a space feel more balanced, more comfortable, more real, but still aspirational. The appraiser just feels better about it, which can nudge the valuation up.
Okay, this next one sounds fascinating. 3-point thinking, especially for entryways or doorways. How does that work?
It's about guiding the eye, creating a little subliminal journey. You put a wow point right near the entrance, something visually interesting, like cool art, or a unique console table.
Okay, the hook.
Yeah, the hook. Then further into the space, you place an aha point, something that draws them in, like a fireplace or a great view.
The destination.
Right. And the bridge is the subtle connection between the two, maybe a color repeated or a style element that creates a cohesive visual path. They call it the red thread.
So it makes the appraiser experience the space as a unified whole, not just separate rooms.
Exactly. It creates a positive flow, a sense of discovery. Very clever staging psychology.
But none of that matters if the first impression is bad. If the appraiser walks up and the front yard looks neglected.
Game over before it starts. Curb appeal is absolutely critical. Sellers sometimes pour money into the inside and totally forget the outside.
It's the expectation, right?
Completely. If the outside looks rough, the appraiser's already thinking deferred maintenance before they even ring the bell. They're mentally deducting value.
So what are the simple, high ROI things to do outside?
Basic maintenance, first off. Trim bushes so they aren't blocking windows. Light is value.
Good point.
Weed the beds, put down fresh mulch, edge the lawn, mow it. Clean and neat. Then the front door. It's the handshake.
Repaint if it's faded or peeling.
Definitely. Or at least give it a really good scrub. And check the house numbers. If they're old, tarnished, falling off, it makes the whole house seem dated. New numbers are cheap and easy.
Okay, they're inside. First step, our sources say, is extremely thorough uncluttering. We all know decluttering is important, but why so critical for an appraisal?
It's about minimizing friction, really. The appraiser needs to visualize the space, measure it, see the bones. Your stuff gets in the way of that.
And removes distractions.
Yes. And depersonalizes. Get rid of anything overtly personal, political, religious. You want it to feel like a blank canvas for the next owner.
What about closets? People always say clear the closets.
Yes, but strategically. Don't just jam everything in there tighter. Leave them visibly half full.
To suggest there's plenty of storage space.
Exactly. It markets the unused capacity. And here's a pro tip.
Yeah.
Completely empty the coat closet near the entrance.
Why that one specifically?
It's often one of the first closets someone looks in. An empty one sends a powerful message right away. This house has room. It's not bursting at the seams.
That's smart. It's not just hiding clutter. It's showcasing potential.
And take it a step further. Start pre-packing now. Empty those kitchen cabinets and drawers of stuff you don't use. Old canned goods, duplicate Tupperware.
Stuff that costs money to move anyway.
Right. It makes the kitchen look bigger and more organized for the appraisal, and it saves you hassle and expense later. Win-win.
Okay, we've covered aesthetics and perception.
Girl.
Now let's talk about the actual physical condition, and this is where the FHA comes in, right? Even if the loan is an FHA.
Yes, the Federal Housing Administration's minimum property requirements, or MPRs, they set a baseline standard
What's the goal of those standards?
to make sure the house is fundamentally safe and sound, free of gross structural or mechanical deficiencies, as they put it, no major hazards.
So why does that matter if the buyer has a conventional loan?
Because if a house can't meet those basic FHA standards, it raises red flags for any lender. It signals potential problems and shrinks the pool of buyers who could even consider it.
Things like peeling paint, maybe. Broken windows, signs of leaks.
Exactly. Peeling paint is a big one, especially in older homes because of lead concerns. Broken windows, roof issues, foundation cracks, evidence of water damage, anything that suggests neglect or a safety issue.
And these are checked during the appraisal.
They are. It's an actual on-site inspection. The appraiser is looking for these kinds of issues. For existing homes, it's before the loan commitment. For new builds, it's checked at various stages. So as a seller, you absolutely want to fix these obvious things beforehand.
What about fixes that aren't huge budget items but make a big difference visually, addressing that deferred maintenance look?
Bathrooms and kitchens are key here. One really easy, high-impact fix is dealing with old, dingy grout.
In the shower or around the tub?
Yeah. You can get a mold-proof grout pen really cheaply. Just trace over the old grout lines. It instantly makes the whole bathroom look cleaner, newer. It's amazing the difference it makes.
That's a great tip. Easy DIY.
Totally. Takes very little time, costs almost nothing.
And thinking bigger picture, especially for sellers who might be investors, making actual structural improvements can directly boost the appraised value, like adding a bedroom or bathroom.
Oh, yeah. That's forcing appreciation. We saw examples where converting, say, a 2-bed, 1-bath into a 3-bed, 2-bath, maybe for under $15,000, if the layout allows, can dramatically increase the value.
Because it appeals to a whole different, larger buyer pool.
Right. Families needing that extra space.
Yeah.
And it justifies higher rents if it's an investment property. So when you sell or refinance, the appraiser has a very clear justification for a significantly higher value. That added bedroom and bath are concrete value additions.
Okay, this brings up something sellers often get confused about. The appraisal versus the home inspection. They sound similar.
But they're totally different animals, serve different purposes, different masters.
So the appraisal is for the lender.
Primarily, yes. The appraiser's job is to determine the value of the property to ensure it's adequate security for the loan. They look at comps, general condition, maybe check those FHA-type standards.
And the inspector.
The inspection is for the buyer. It's their due diligence. They hire an inspector to do a deep dive into the home systems, HVAC, roof, electrical, plumbing, structure, looking for defects, potential future costs, safety issues.
Things that might not affect the appraised value right now, but could cost the buyer a lot down the road.
Exactly. And the inspection report often gives the buyer grounds to renegotiate the price or even walk away from the deal if they find major problems.
So a low appraisal threatens the loan amount, but a bad inspection threatens the entire contract,
Precisely. Two different risks.
which means the seller needs a plan for both. For the appraisal, part of that plan is having the right paperwork ready.
Yes, the seller's facilitation plan, as our sources call it. Basically, get your documentation organized for the appraiser.
What should be in that packet?
Anything that proves value-adding improvements. Permits for additions or major renovations, invoices or receipts for big-ticket items like a new roof, new HVAC system, maybe new windows, a list of recent upgrades with dates.
Why provide all this?
It helps the appraiser justify the contract price. It gives them concrete evidence that money was spent improving the property, making it worth more than maybe a similar house that hasn't had those upgrades. It makes their job easier and supports your price.
And having this ready ties into getting the deal closed faster, right?
Yeah.
Sellers often want quick closings.
Absolutely. Especially investors, they value speed. Having the appraisal packet ready helps avoid delays. Long, drawn-out closings, waiting weeks for approvals, or getting bogged down in renegotiations after a low appraisal or inspection. Savvy sellers hate that. Time is money.
Okay, what about interacting with the appraiser directly or the buyer's agent during this phase? How should a seller handle that?
The key is professionalism and using the platinum rule.
Treat others how they want to be treated.
Exactly. Adapt to their style. If the appraiser's all business, just provide the info, answer questions factually, and stay out of their way. Don't hover.
And with the buyer's agent.
Remember the seller's mindset. Sellers usually want to get to the bottom line, the price, quickly. Lengthy presentations about marketing plans just make them impatient.
So keep communication efficient and focused.
Right. Provide the appraisal packet. Be available if needed. Make it easy for them to do their job and see the value you've presented. Don't be the difficult part of the process.
Okay. Despite all the prep, sometimes the appraisal just comes in low. It happens. What are the options then? Let's think about how investors handle this first, as it might inform sellers.
Right. For an investor, a low appraisal isn't necessarily the end. It often triggers a decision point, especially after they've repositioned a property, done the rehab, maybe raised the rents.
So the value is now established, even if it's lower than hoped. What's the decision?
Sell or hold. If they sell, they might use a 1031 exchange to defer taxes and roll the money into the next deal.
We'll touch on that more in a second.
Or if they hold, they might do a cash-out refinance based on that new appraised value, even if it was a bit low, to pull their initial investment back out and use it elsewhere.
The point is, the value, once appraised, becomes a tool.
It does. So for a traditional seller facing a low appraisal from the buyer's bank, the first step is usually pushback. Persistence.
How do you push back effectively?
You need to formally request a reconsideration of value, or ROV. But you can't just say, I disagree. You need data.
Find better comps.
Find better, more recent, more similar, comparable sales that the appraiser might have missed or maybe didn't give enough weight to. You need to build a case.
Show why your house is superior to the ones they used. Condition, specific upgrades, maybe location factors.
Exactly. You need to provide compelling evidence. Think of it like sales. You have to overcome the objection with facts and justification. Maybe point to multiple offers received, showing market demand supported the price.
What if the ROV doesn't work? The value stays low, then it comes down to the appraisal gap, right?
Usually, yeah. Either the buyer has to come up with more cash to cover the difference between the appraisal and the contract price.
Or the seller has to lower the price to meet the appraisal value. Or maybe meet somewhere in the middle.
Or the deal falls apart. This is where thinking about other financial levers like tax strategies becomes relevant regardless of this specific outcome.
Let's talk about the 1031 exchange again. That's for investment properties. Deferring capital gains tax. What's the key rule?
The main thing is you have to buy a replacement like-kind property that's worth at least as much as the one you sold.
So if you sell for 500 tires, you need to buy for $500 K or more.
Correct. But here's a detail people miss. Certain acquisition costs on the new property can count towards that replacement value target.
Like what? Inspection fees, closing costs.
Exactly. Inspection fees, appraisal fees on the new place, title insurance, escrow fees, even brokerage commissions paid for the replacement property. Those add to the purchase price value for the 1031 calculation.
That's really useful. because if you buy a replacement property that costs less than the sale price, plus those allowed costs.
The difference is called boot, and that boot is taxable immediately. So
Yeah.
maximizing those allowable costs helps minimize potential boot.
Smart. Okay, another tax strategy mentioned was timing the sale based on your overall income. How does that work?
This relates to depreciation recapture on investment properties.
Right.
When you sell, the IRS wants back the tax benefit you got from depreciating the property over the years.
And that recapture is taxed. How?
It's taxed at a maximum rate of 25% or your ordinary marginal income tax rate for that year, whichever is lower.
Okay. So if you manage to sell in a year where your total income is unusually low,
Maybe you had big business losses or were between jobs or retired, your marginal tax rate might actually dip below 25%.
and then the depreciation recapture gets taxed at that lower marginal rate.
Precisely. You're not avoiding the tax, but you're potentially lowering the rate at which a chunk of your gain is taxed by timing the sale strategically. Very effective if you can plan it.
Okay, back to the immediate problem, the appraisal gap. If the buyer is trying to find extra cash or adjust their loan, the seller should be aware of the buyer's financing options too.
It definitely helps the seller if the buyer is financially savvy, because the buyer needs to shop around.
For better loan terms.
Yeah, rates and terms can vary significantly. We saw mentions of things like home equity lines of credit varying by as much as 10% between banks.
Wow.
So if the buyer does their homework and secures better financing, maybe finds a lender more comfortable with the property or willing to offer a product that bridges that gap, it helps keep the seller's deal alive without the seller necessarily having to drop their price as much.
Yeah.
Hashtag outro.
So wrapping this all up, what's the big takeaway for you, the seller? It seems like the appraisal isn't just something you passively wait for.
Not at all. It's really about active, thoughtful preparation across the board.
You need to align everything.
Yeah.
The way the home looks and feels, the documentation proving its upgrades in condition, and the underlying financial metrics, whether that's ARV or income potential.
All pointing towards supporting that contract price. It's where marketing meets finance meets project management.
Controlling the details, from how full the closets look to having that packet of receipts ready for the appraiser.
It all increases the odds of a smoother process and getting the value you need. You're building the case for your price, step by step. The perceived quality reinforces the numbers.
We started by saying real estate value is leverageable, rentable, and improvable. So here's a final thought. If you've truly maxed out all those aspects, you've done the work, staged it perfectly, documented everything, but there's still a small appraisal gap. What's your final point of leverage in that negotiation?
Yeah, besides just lowering the price, what else can you do? Could you offer a seller credit towards the buyer's closing costs? Sometimes that feels like less of a hit than a direct price reduction, but achieves the same goal for the buyer.
Or maybe leverage time. If the buyer really wants this house, can you stand firm on price but offer a very quick closing, appealing to their desire to lock it down before rates change or another buyer appears?
Exactly. Finding that last bit of strategic leverage, financial or psychological, to bridge that final gap, that's often what separates a deal that closes from one that falls apart right at the finish line.